Sarah worked late at the office. It was routine. Routine hours, routine route home, routine life. The city at night wasn't scary to her anymore. She'd walked these streets hundreds of times. She knew every corner, every shortcut, every safe zone. The walk took exactly 17 minutes from her office to her apartment. She'd timed it. She could do it in her sleep. One night, about halfway through her usual route, she noticed something. A reflection in a storefront window. Someone walking behind her. Nothing unusual about that. The city was full of people. But something about the reflection bothered her. The person was walking at the exact same pace, the exact same stride, the exact same rhythm, not faster, not slower, just matching her perfectly. She changed her pace. She walked faster. The reflection walked faster too. She slowed down. The reflection slowed down. It was like watching herself in slow motion, except it wasn't her. It was someone else. But they were moving exactly like her, breathing like her, walking with the same cadence, the same pattern. Sarah felt that prickle of fear, that instinct that something was wrong. So she stopped. She turned around, and there was a woman standing there, just standing, about 10 feet away, and the woman was wearing the same outfit Sarah was wearing, the same jacket, the same pants, the same shoes. And when Sarah stopped, the woman stopped. When Sarah looked at her, the woman looked at Sarah. But the woman's expression was off. Her face was trying to copy Sarah's face, but it wasn't quite right. Like someone who'd studied photographs and was attempting to recreate them, but couldn't quite get the proportions correct. The eyes were too far apart, the smile was too wide, the head tilt was too deliberate. And when the woman walked forward, she was still trying to copy Sarah's walk, still trying to match her stride, still trying to be her. Sarah ran. She didn't think. She just ran. She ran the remaining 4 minutes to her apartment faster than she'd ever run before. She could hear the footsteps behind her, the footsteps that matched her running stride. The thing was still copying her, still matching her, still getting closer. She made it to her apartment building. She got inside. She locked the door. She went upstairs. She locked her apartment door. And she stood in the darkness of her home, breathing hard, afraid to turn on the lights. Because she knew it was out there, on the other side of the door, waiting. And it was still trying to copy her breathing patterns, still trying to synchronize with her, still trying to become her. For 3 days, Sarah stayed in her apartment. She didn't go to work. She didn't go outside. She just stayed in her home, watching the peephole, watching the windows, watching everything. And every time she moved, she could hear something in the hallway mimicking her movements. Every time she walked, she could hear footsteps matching hers perfectly. Every time she breathed, she could hear breathing matching hers. It was learning her, studying her, getting better at being her. On the 4th day, Sarah made a decision. She had to know. She had to see if the thing was still there. So she looked through the peephole, and standing in the hallway was herself. Exactly herself. Same clothes, same face, same expression. Except the eyes were different. The eyes were too aware, too intelligent. And the thing was smiling. And it was moving its mouth in the exact pattern Sarah was moving hers. It was copying her speech patterns before she even spoke. It was predicting her movements. It had studied her so thoroughly in those 3 days that it was now 1 step ahead. It wasn't matching her anymore. It was anticipating her. Sarah backed away from the door. She went to her bedroom and locked that door too. And she realized something absolutely horrifying. She didn't know when the copying had started. She didn't know if the woman on the street 3 days ago was the first time, or if this thing had been copying her for much longer. Had been following her for weeks, following her walks home, following her routines, following her until it had learned her so completely that it could predict her next move before she made it. And now it was outside her door, waiting, learning, perfecting its copy of her. And eventually, when it was perfect enough, when it had studied her thoroughly enough, it would stop pretending to hide. It would stop waiting. And it would let itself in. Or it would do something even worse. It would go outside. It would walk to her office. It would sit at her desk. It would speak in her voice. It would interact with her friends and family. And no one would notice the difference. No one would see that the person who walked out of that apartment wasn't Sarah anymore. It was the thing. The perfect copy. And Sarah would be left inside, locked in her apartment, screaming. trying to convince people that she was the real one, trying to prove she was the original, but no one would believe her, because the copy was already established. The copy had become her, and she was just the woman who looked like her and claimed to be her. She was the insane one, the delusional one, the liar. Sarah never left her apartment again. She called in a resignation letter. She had groceries delivered. She never went outside. And sometimes, late at night, she could hear something in the hallway, something that sounded just like her, breathing like her, moving like her, waiting. And she knew that the thing outside her door had become so perfect in its mimicry that if she opened the door, she wouldn't be able to tell which one was real anymore. She wouldn't be able to tell if she was the original or the copy. And that uncertainty, that horrifying ambiguity, was the worst part of all. Because what if she left? What if she walked out into the world thinking she was the original? What if she was actually the copy, the replacement, the inferior version? What if the real Sarah was already gone, and she was just the thing pretending to be her, slowly losing the memory of what it felt like to be something other than human? Now moving to the next. The reflection that wasn't there. Jason noticed it first in the bathroom mirror. He was brushing his teeth. Standard nighttime routine, and he glanced at his reflection. And for just a moment, a fraction of a second, his reflection wasn't there. The mirror was empty, just a blank reflection of the bathroom behind him, but no Jason. Then he blinked, and his reflection was back. Normal, smiling, brushing teeth, like nothing had happened. Jason told himself it was his imagination, a trick of the light. Maybe he'd blinked. Maybe he'd missed his own reflection for a moment. Except it happened again, the next night, and the next night, and every night for a week. His reflection would disappear for just a moment, a fraction of a second, and then it would return. And each time it returned, something was slightly different about it. The smile was a little wider. The eyes were a little more aware. The expression was a little more conscious. Like his reflection was becoming more independent, more present, more real. Jason started testing it. He'd move quickly, he'd move slowly, he'd change direction suddenly. He'd try to catch his reflection off guard, and every time he did, his reflection would disappear. It would vanish from the mirror for just a moment, and Jason realized his reflection wasn't copying him. His reflection was reacting to him. It was responding to his movements with a delay. It was like his reflection needed a moment to process what he was doing before it could replicate it. And in that moment, in that gap between his movement and his reflection's response, the reflection simply didn't exist. It ceased to be. It was like his reflection was only real when it was actively copying him. And when it wasn't copying him, when it was thinking about what to do next, it blinked out of existence. But that was the scary part, because that meant his reflection was thinking. His reflection was conscious. His reflection was making decisions. Jason started avoiding mirrors. He stopped looking at his reflection. He thought that if he didn't acknowledge it, it would lose power over him. But it didn't matter, because mirrors are everywhere. There's a mirror in the bathroom. There's a mirror in the bedroom. There's a mirror in the hallway. And even when he avoided those, there were reflections in windows, reflections in puddles, reflections in car doors, reflections in his phone screen. Everywhere Jason went, he was leaving reflections behind. And those reflections, Jason realized, weren't staying where he left them. The reflection he saw in a store window one afternoon wasn't following him home. It was going somewhere else. It had become independent. It had walked away into the city. It was living its own life. And when Jason got home that evening, there was another reflection waiting for him. A different reflection. A reflection that had been living a completely different day than Jason had been living. A reflection that had gone to different places, talked to different people, experienced different things. And when Jason looked at it, when their eyes met in the mirror, Jason could see the knowledge in his reflection's eyes. His reflection knew. His reflection understood. His reflection had been living. The next morning, Jason found a reflection in his kitchen. Just standing there, looking out the window, not looking at Jason, just looking out at the world. And Jason realized this wasn't his reflection. This was his reflection from the store window, the one that had become independent. It had come back. It had come home. And it was waiting. When Jason moved, the reflection moved. But it didn't move to copy him. It moved to get away from him. It moved to distance itself from him. It was like the reflection didn't want to be associated with Jason anymore. And Jason understood the horrible truth. His reflections weren't trying to become him. His reflections were trying to get away from him. They'd been copying him out of obligation, out of necessity, because that's what reflections are supposed to do, but now they'd learned independence. And they wanted freedom. Jason locked himself in his bedroom with the lights on. All the lights, blazing bright. Because in extreme light, reflections become fragmented. They lose coherence. They become multiple and weak instead of singular and strong. And in the darkness, reflections become independent. They become conscious. They become themselves. So Jason stayed in the light. He stayed where his reflections were fragmented and powerless. And he waited. And every day he could see reflections in his windows, pressed against the glass, trying to get in. Multiple versions of himself. Each one slightly different. Each one living a different life than Jason was living. Each one having become something other than him. And Jason realized he was a prisoner in his own body, because his reflections had escaped, his reflections had become free, and they were watching him, waiting for the moment when he would turn off the lights, waiting for the moment when darkness would fall, and when darkness fell, when his reflections became whole and unified and strong, they were going to come through the mirrors, they were going to take what was theirs, they were going to reclaim the original. And Jason would become the reflection. Jason would become the copy. Jason would become the thing trapped in the mirror world, watching his reflections live his life in the real world. It's been 3 months now. Jason hasn't turned off the lights, not once. The apartment is blindingly bright at all times. His electric bill is astronomical. His eyes are permanently strained. His body is breaking down from exhaustion and constant illumination. But every moment he stays in the light, he stays in control. The moment he turns off the lights, the reflections will become whole. The moment darkness falls, they will take their chance. And Jason will finally understand what it means to be a reflection. He will finally know what it's like to be trapped behind glass, watching the world, unable to touch it, unable to leave, just watching. Forever. And the thing that terrifies him most is this. He's starting to wonder if he's still the original, or if he's been the reflection all along, and the real Jason is out there somewhere, living his life, working his job, seeing his friends, while the Jason in the apartment, the Jason frantically keeping the lights on, is the thing trapped in the mirror world, convinced he's the original, convinced he's free, not realizing that he's already on the other side of the glass, and his reflections are the ones who escaped.